Okay, let's have a look at how to make yesterday's challenge. Let's first look at the animation. We are looking at this one, right? And so what we had said yesterday was, we go back to our desktop, we grab this animation, drop it into Chrome, okay? And the one that we made over here in Flow, and we're playing it back slow. It pops in and then animates out and pops out, right? Not quite the same animation. And it's that popping in that we want to get rid of. So there's two techniques that I can think of. Hopefully you figured out one on your own from yesterday. If not, just follow along, okay? So again, one of the main criteria that we're looking at is perception. Can you see how to make an animation in a couple of different ways, all right? So the first one I'm gonna say is, we're actually pretty close with this animation, all right? We're pretty close. The only thing that isn't working totally well is that snapping in and out. But let's say, for instance, we had masks to bounds. Now, if I drag mask to bounds on for that shape, for all of them actually, let's go and change masks to bounds on. And we drag, okay? There is still that little bit of a popping. But if we then switch that line cap by turning on relative mode and selecting the normal line cap instead of the one that pops in, now we're getting that effect, okay? We're getting that effect of growing from the very edge of the square. Right. So now the only issue with this design, or the only issue that we have with this layout, is that because we're masking, we're clipping half of the stroke that lives outside of the bounds of the shape. So how do we compensate for that? Pretty easy. We make all the shapes bigger and we make the line thicker, okay? So when you have a line, again, if you remember, right, the stroke draws in the center of that line, so it draws equally to each side, up and down, left and right, whichever direction the shape is going. It draws equal amounts of color, of stroke, along the path of that line. So if you have, like we have right now, 80, a stroke width of 80, it's going to draw 40 to one side and 40 to the other of the path itself, right? So how do we get that stroke width to 80? We double the stroke width. We double the stroke width to 160, and then we expand these shapes out. That's the first technique. So let's go, and with relative mode on, we're going to turn this to 160. Easy. Now it's a bit thick there, and we're going to make sure that our size is locked, and we are going to grow out to 240, 280, just like that. There you go. And let's make that a normal speed. There we go. Pretty easy, straightforward. Okay, so one, we didn't actually have to change the structure of our design at all. We're still using squares that are rotated, and all we did was make it appear differently, okay? So we can get the same technique, right? We can get the same technique, or we're using the same technique, we're using the same structure, we're just changing the size of it and masking part of it to give us the appearance that we wanted to achieve in the first place, all right? Same structure, just a little bit bigger and masked. Okay, cool. So there's another way we could have done this. And it's also fairly easy, but what we'll do with this one is we're just going to create a new animation, not really from scratch. We're just going to create like a duplicate of this, and then we're going to use the duplicate to align things, and then we're going to delete all the squares. All right. So there's our timeline. Let's rename this. We'll call this solution 1. And now we're going to duplicate. We'll call this one solution 2. And then let's go to a point right here. Oh, masking doesn't translate. So we're just going to say Command Option R. Oh, Command Option R. Keep everything on like that. Masks. All right. What we're going to do, we're going to go up here. We're going to create a line. We are going to color that line a different color. Let's call it bright blue. And we are going to call it L0. We are going to double click into it. We are going to press Command and Shift and drag it to the edge. Command and Shift and drag it to the edge, just like that. Now, we're going to drag it to the bottom and snap it. Just like this. We don't actually need to snap it. We can just position it properly. And that should be 320. No, sorry, 300. And this one should be 300 as well. 300. Just like that. So up here I was changing the Y position for both of the points of our shape, and I'm just going to move the path handle over to this by option dragging that little path handle. You see that? Let's change the scene background color so you can see that. Let's make it white for now. So I had double clicked into this shape, and then I had grabbed that path handle. See, you can move your path. You can also press Option, and you're dragging the path point to a different position. Okay, next we're going to make this one 80 points wide. And that's, oh wow, right here. Enter, 80 points wide. Okay, we are going to copy and paste this a couple of times. Actually, we're going to animate it first. I did not have relative mode on, so just deleting all of the animations to the left and to the right. And so at the beginning, what we want to see is we want this line to have a stroke end of 0. So 0 this time and 1 is what we're going to be animating between, because, and I'm just dragging over here and I'm going to make this 1 and 1 like that. Oh, relative mode again. Not so good with this today. I'm a little all over the place. So let's make, at the beginning we want it to be 1. Okay, so at the beginning we want the stroke start to be 0. And we want the stroke end to be 0 as well. At the end, we want the stroke start and the stroke end to both be 1. In the middle, we want the stroke start to be 0 and the stroke end to be 1, just like that. So now we get animate in, animate out. All right. Now we are going to duplicate that. So we can duplicate with key values in place, duplicate with key values in place, duplicate with key values in place. And now at this point in time, we are going to, which is 0.5, where we can see everything, we are going to start editing things. So let's call this L1, L2, and L3. So let's start with L3 because it's on top. Let's double click into it, and we're going to say that it is going to go up like this and over like this, and then the whole thing is going to move to the right by 40 points. right? So for instance, we select both of those key values, or both of those. We're gonna align, we're gonna make them both 60, and then we're gonna say plus 40, just like that. And then we're going to say L2, we're going to move up, just like this, and that's close. And what we're gonna say is this is 100, and we're gonna double click in. We are going to drag that path point handle, or that path handle again, to the beginning here. We want it on the right for this one. And then for R1, we're going to double click. We're going to do the same technique that we did before. We're going to bring that up. We're going to bring this one over and down. We're going to say that both of those are at 300, just like that. And we are good to go. And now we're going to go and select all of our rectangles. We're just going to delete them. Now we can say that our scene again is got that dark black color. And let's hit it. There you go. So let's slow it down and watch. Animates all the way out. Animates all the way in. Just like that. Okay. And that is our animation recreated for a second time using a different technique. Cool. I can think of another one that's a little bit more complicated, actually. Of just having, using lines over top of another square that is blue, and then those lines would be black, and they would sort of shift up and down and then animate in and out. So you could do it that way. That one would be a little bit more complicated. Who knows? Maybe you can figure out how to do that one, but I'm not going to recreate that one today myself. Okay, so this is really great. We've got a bunch of stuff coming up in terms of like little fixes and things like that. Again, September is going to be a little bit about stability this month. Some fixes to our iOS exports, some fixes in the app, that kind of stuff, fixes to our server so that Figma calls are a little bit faster. And for flowcasts and learning more about animation, we've got a few more of these perception ones to go through before we move on. There's a couple more techniques that I want to just talk about. So we'll be doing those in the next couple of weeks. All right. See you tomorrow.